Hello, I'm David Barlow. I'm a Hawaii car accident injury lawyer. Today we're going to talk about statute of limitations. Basically, in Hawaii, the statute of limitations for car accidents is 2 years. That's the shortest version of this video, but now we'll go into a little more detail about that because it can be a little confusing. So first of all, what is a statute of limitations? Statute of limitations is, simply put, it's the deadline that courts have for you to file a complaint in court. Why do they have these deadlines? Courts think that the longer it takes to file a claim, the more chance have the system be less accurate and less just. All right, with time, memories fade, evidence disappears or fade. They put 2 years. It's actually plenty of time to get everything together and get things filed in court. They actually have some exceptions where it can be much more than 2 years. The number one exception is, there are other videos, first of all, that talk about no-fault insurance, so I won't talk a lot about that on this video. One of the exceptions is it's 2 years after the last no-fault insurance payment. So no-fault insurance, just very briefly, that is the $10,000 of insurance that covers you when you're in a car accident, and that's your own insurance pays that $10,000. So it takes time sometimes for people to get treatment. Some people go to the ER that day and they have over $10,000 in bills that day, and their insurance pays that within a month. And so under that scenario, your statute of limitations would be 2 years and 1 month. So other people get treatment for a long time. If you don't really go to the ER and you're just getting physical therapy for, let's say, 2 years, and then 2 years after the accident, your insurance company pays the last payment for your final physical therapy treatment, then it's 2 years after that date. So you have the accident, 2 years after the accident, your insurance makes the last payment. So the statute of limitations is 2 years after that. So in that scenario, the statute of limitations would be 4 years after your accident. And that's not actually uncommon. I have many clients that statute of limitations is 3, 4, 5 years after the accident. Sometimes things just happen. So even if you didn't treat for very long, sometimes there's just some miscommunication or issues with the insurance paying the bill, and somehow they didn't pay their final bill. Maybe they paid $9,000 within a year, but then they paid that last $1,000 like 2 or 3 years after the accident. So then your statute of limitations would be 5 years after the accident. But this is important to understand. I do get a lot of clients when their case is, it goes on for a while. They kind of get a little anxious after 2 years after the accident. They get pretty worried. I have to explain, very clearly, don't worry, relax. It's 2 years after that last no-fault insurance payment. You can't mess around with that. You got to know for sure when that last payment was. So you order a ledger from your insurance company. It's called a PIP ledger, personal injury protection. That's another name for no-fault insurance. On the mainland, they call it MedPay. Those are kind of 3 different terms: MedPay, PIP, personal injury protection, and no fault. Those are kind of 3 terms for basically the same thing. All right, they're all for basically that insurance that you have in your car that pays that $10,000 of your medical bills, or more. Sometimes you can buy more than $10,000, but $10,000 is the minimum. Like I was saying, you can't mess around with statute of limitations. So even though it can get extended and it can be 3 or 4 years, you gotta know what you're doing, okay? You gotta get that ledger from your insurance company, be absolutely 100% sure of the date of their last payment, not the date that they received the bill, not the date that, they were considering it. It's the date that they made that payment, all right? The date they put the check in the mail to that medical provider. That is the date that 2 years period begins. Statute of limitations, although you can get extended, there's other reasons why it can be extended. Insurance companies can agree to it if they are still working on the claim. Then it's basically extended during that time. So they will be very clear with us when they're saying something like making a settlement offer. They will be very clear this is not extending the statute of limitations. They're usually very clear about that because they don't want it to extend and go on forever either. But if they're not clear about it and they're still working on the claim, that could technically extend the deadline. Another one we see occasionally is when a child is injured in an accident and they are under 18. The statute of limitations is not until 2 years after they turn 18. We've had 2-year-old kids get in accidents. We did settle those and it got approved by the trust court, and they don't get their money until they are 18. Some other cases we have, the kids were like 12 and 14 and the parents just decided, you know what, we don't want to pay all the fees for the trust court. We'll just wait and settle after they're 18. So for example, the kid was 12 years old, he turns 18 in 6 years. Statute of limitations does not start until six years plus the extra 2, right? You know, there's plenty of time. No statute of limitations is really an issue when the kid is under 18, okay? 18 is when that 2 years starts. All right, there's a few other exceptions if they are mentally handicapped, how that's sorted out. Now, if there is a death, then it is 2 years after the death, all right? Even if the no-fault insurance doesn't make the payment for the medical treatment for a long time, either way, it's 2 years after that death, okay? So a couple exceptions, again, statute of limitations, there are exceptions, but it's serious business, all right? If you miss a statute of limitations, you don't get the claim filed in court by that deadline, the case is closed forever. There's no exceptions. So you do not mess around with statute of limitations. There are exceptions, there are extensions, there are ways to get it extended, but you gotta know for 100% surety that what that date is, and you gotta get that claim filed in court by that date. Now, let's say you're not quite ready to settle, you know, things are still happening, and that deadline is coming. You can file that claim in court by that date. It doesn't mean all of a sudden you're just going to court and the insurance company's out and you know, you're heading down that 2-year or 3-year road of the court process, because you just got to get filed in court by that date. And then nothing really happens until you serve the complaint. All right, so you can file it, you don't serve it, you have 6 months to serve it, and then you can even ask the court for more time to serve it. There are ways to deal with this. Statute of limitations in Hawaii, hopefully I cleared it up a little bit. Try not to make these videos too long. If I took an hour, I'm sure I could be really crystal clear on this, but feel free to check out our website. It also explains a lot about statute of limitations in Hawaii for auto accidents. And of course, you can just give us a call. All right, thank you.